Welcome to City of Keene in Focus. Thanks so much for listening. Hello and welcome to our next episode of City of Keene in Focus. My name is Asa Kramer and I am joined this morning by Elizabeth Furland, our city manager, and Rebecca Landry, our deputy city manager. Hi, guys.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Asa. Welcome back, Elizabeth.
Thank you. I had a wonderful week off. It was a great vacation. It was my husband's 30th reunion for the Air Force Academy. So we went out to Colorado Springs and we got to see a lot of people that he hasn't seen in a really long time. And so it was a great trip, but I'm happy to be back. And Rebecca, I'm so grateful that you covered for me while I was gone. You had a lot on your plate.
It was a busy week, Elizabeth, and I did everything I could to finish as many things as we could so they wouldn't be on your plate when you got back.
Well, you know, I got to my office this morning and I looked at my inbox and I thought, geez, Rebecca did a great job. If only you could do my emails, too. You wouldn't believe how many emails you get in 1 week's time. It's crazy.
I do believe it.
Yeah. So because I was on vacation, I missed the council meeting, but I hear it was not a super long one.
We started on a high note with a couple of the proclamations last night, which were really nice for Keene. The first one was for the new owner of Whitney Brothers, 121 years. That was really nice to see the new ownership here in City Hall. It was a great time to celebrate what they have achieved. And then also for Paragon Digital. So Paragon has been here for a while now, and they just received an award for one of the best places to work.
Oh, that's great.
And their employees really rank them highly for how they treat their staff. So they received recognition from the mayor for that. And they developed our website, and they actually host our website as well. So we're very happy to keep that business local.
Yeah, they've been a great addition to the community, and Whitney Brothers, you just got to love them. They've been here for a long time, and it's wonderful to see that they're still thriving in this community. That's great news.
Agreed.
And I just want to mention Zach Luce, who's the CEO of Paragon, is one of the people that's taking advantage of the 79E tax revitalization program,
That's right.
which is just a fun little detail.
Yeah, he's got a great project.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Asa. I think this is the second time that he's used that program, so we're excited to see that. That's for the old church on Court Street, which is now where Paragon Digital is located on that first floor, but on the upper floor in the old hall is going to be the beer garden.
What a great idea to really be able to use all the space of that very cool building.
And since Asa brought it up, we should say that 79E is a program that incentivizes the development of historic buildings, and it actually has a broader scope than that, but it provides some property tax relief for a few years if they are approved by the city council. And we are looking at the 79E program right now to see how we could potentially expand that in Keene. So that's something that we look forward to using going forward.
What else happened at the council meeting?
We have received a number of communications in regards to the 100 Church Street parcel. And so that is something that has been to the Finance Committee, which would be FOP. It has also been to the Municipal Services, Facilities, and Infrastructure Committee a couple times. That's MSFI. It seems like even though it's been in and out of committee a few times, there's more information coming in from the public, and the council wanted to open up that public discussion again at the committee level. So Councilor Greenwald made it pretty clear last night that he will give this one more chance at the committee level, but he's committed to final action once it comes out of the committee this time. And of course the question is whether or not to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute an agreement for the sale of that property. That has pros and cons, and the council is weighing the pros and cons. They're definitely committed to hearing ideas and concerns on the part of public. There are concerns on both sides of this issue. People who think it should be sold because of the problems associated with that property as it stands today, and there are people who would like to see it continue to be an open space for the neighborhood. So it will go back to MSFI in their October meeting.
This is a tough one. I get why the council is really struggling with what the right answer is for this property. I am surprised, though, however, that it went back to committee again. This will be the fourth time it's gone to committee. I've seen the communications that have been coming in both in support of the sale of the property and then also in support of keeping the property a green space for the community. So, there's definitely a lot to consider. And I think one of the things that we struggle with is, what's the right balance? Because we do have to strategically use what resources we have, both financial resources and human resources, in a way that makes sense for the community. And I guess we're hearing what makes sense for the community right now. And so, the council will hopefully come to a decision after the next. Is it going back to MSFI?
It is
again?
going
Okay.
back to MSFI, and I appreciated what Councilor Greenwald provided for a brief history last night. Some of us were not aware, and the public certainly might be interested in the fact that that is something that was used by Antioch back when they were located in the building there before they moved over to Avon Street, I believe it was.
Yeah.
They used it quite actively as a park space for their students, faculty, and staff, and that changed when they moved. So it was interesting to hear that reflection of how it may have been used in the past and how it's not used that way anymore.
Well, great. Thanks for that overview. I think that's really good to mention the history of it because, I think a lot of people don't know that, and I certainly didn't. So that was good context for the discussion. So, it will go back to MSFI again. We will see where it goes from there.
Just to kind of wrap that topic up is I always like to go back to our capital plan. So our capital plan is for infrastructure projects, large projects in the community, and it's a 7-year plan. It really even goes beyond the 7 years with projects in the appendix. And these projects make their way through the capital plan until they reach the year of implementation. And if there were to be a project at this location, I would assume it would need to go through a similar process. I know there's been conversation about removing the berm, adding lighting, and doing other things to increase the visibility at the location. All of that would take time if the council decides that's the direction they want to go. So, Rebecca, one thing that was at committee, I wondered if they talked about it at all at the council meeting, was the load rating change to 10 tons on Spring and Beaver Street bridges.
There was no discussion on that at the council meeting. I think it's pretty obvious what needs to happen there.
The reason I bring it up is because the state of New Hampshire has a pretty extensive red bridge list, which basically means these are bridges in the state that need rehab or a completely redo, and they are getting stressed. We have 2 of those bridges right here in the city of Keene. We have actually more than 2 on the red list. And so it's important when we're looking at the state's investment in both bridges and roads that we keep that in mind. It might not be a huge impact to us right now, but what that would mean is there could be some issues for the fire department in terms of the weight of their trucks and keeping them off of those bridges until we have funding from the state program to be able to invest in them. And so I didn't know if that would get any further conversation, but it is something I think we got to keep in mind as we move forward. I know the state was just here last week for their hearing on the 10-year plan, and our Public Works Director, Don Lucier, represented us well as he talked about, having consistent infrastructure investment from the state of New Hampshire and having dedicated funding sources to do that, and that's always a challenge. Right now in the draft 10-year plan, the city of Keene and the Monadnock region has a lot of projects, and we're very grateful for being included, but we do need to keep the pressure on for investment in these bridges as we start to see them become problematic and put these load ratings on and restrict the vehicles that can cross them.
So after that, we moved on to the downtown infrastructure project update, and this is a good time for us to really talk about what's going on behind the scenes. So there wasn't much conversation about that at council meeting last night. At the MSFI meeting, where this came from, Don Lucier and the Public Works team have done a good job of bringing all the information to MSFI, both requested by the chair and that comes up in the community. First of all, that will happen now once a month. Every MSFI meeting, 4th Wednesday of the month, Don Lucier and or members of Public Works will be coming to bring information about where we are with the downtown project, what's going on, what's the next step. But I will say also behind the scenes, we've been working on interviewing potential construction engineering firms who will basically provide some overview and inspections during the project and some administrative support. So that's a key piece of this project. So we've been working hard on that. We've also been talking about the best ways to get information out to the stakeholders as quickly and efficiently as possible. It seems that a lot of people have different preferences in terms of how they want to communicate with the city and get information from the city, and that's reasonable. So we're working on all the ways we can to both empower the project ombudsman, George Downing, to be able to reach people quickly and easily, as well as give the downtown businesses and residents an opportunity to get information to us quickly. And so we're working on that. We're talking about ways and locations we can add signage so that as people drive various thoroughfares in the city and maybe gateways into downtown, how can we make sure that they get information about where to park and what streets to drive on and not drive on. And I have to say that through all of these conversations and all of these efforts, one of the top priorities has been how can we make sure that people still come downtown and support our businesses. So we did have a member of the downtown business community, for example, on the review team when we were looking at construction engineering firms. And that was a good opportunity for us to also talk to them about what are their concerns and what are their plans. And I have to tell you, they have some great ideas about programs that will continue to bring people downtown during the construction project. So we're excited to see that develop and to support those efforts.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Coming up at the next PLD meeting, Mark Rebellard from the downtown group is coming forward with some ideas for festivities while the downtown project is happening. And I think that's just fabulous that they're stepping up and looking at ways to make sure that we have activity in the downtown throughout the next 2 years of construction.
And also on that note, I will say, Asa, you got some big kudos for your very brief video about the trees downtown. So people really like those informal, casual, just give me the facts videos. I have to warn you ahead of time, Asa, we're going to be using you a lot to do tons of videos like that.
Because she's awesome. I saw that video. That was so cute.
Yeah. I think we're going to put some effort into that. George, the Downtown Project Ombudsman, has brought some questions to us that are the most frequently asked questions that he hears. And they are things like, oh my goodness, I'm really worried that all the trees are going to be gone. Or I'm really worried that Central Square is going to just be not even there anymore. And so we want to address that because, we get why people are concerned about that. But the reality is, we're not going to lose all our trees and Central Square is going to stay pretty much the same. So if we can have that conversation, and Facebook Reels are a really lighthearted way to do that and reach a lot of people, we're going to be putting some effort into that.
That's awesome. Behind the scenes, Asa and I really... you don't see all of the reject videos that we come up with.
There are some bad ones.
Can we create a blooper?
I'm actually
reel?
thinking about doing that because, Asa goes out there and then we kind of pick through the 10 options and come up with the best one. But we see a lot more coming.
I will tell you, Rebecca, one of the videos that I saw that you did that I absolutely loved was walking from Gilboa Ave and to really get across. It's not a very long walk, and how many minutes, and I don't remember how many minutes it was, but it was just a few minutes to get from Gilboa Ave to Main Street. I thought that was a powerful video. It illustrated that we have all this parking on Gilboa Ave, and it's really not that far from our Main Street.
Well, coincidentally, Elizabeth, It actually takes less than 1 minute, and Asa posted another video yesterday of an interesting woman driving down Main Street in her car, frustrated that she couldn't find a place to park right in front of the place she was going. And it was followed immediately by a video of the sound of crickets in the Commercial Street parking lot with nothing but empty parking spaces.
Oh, wow. I'll have to check that one out.
All kidding aside, we find people saying, how come there's nobody in this parking lot? Because it's literally steps from Main Street. And we can, and I am guilty of this, I'm not going to lie, drive up and down Main Street 3 or 4 or 5 times until I find a spot when I could have already been parked in the Commercial or the Gilboa lot, gotten my business taken care of, and been on my way. So moving on, we did have the social district question, and that was passed by the council strictly to put it on the ballot. So in the upcoming elections, you will see the clerks working on preparing a question for the ballot, which will include whether or not the public wants to enable the city council to pass a rule regarding social districts which would allow consumption of alcohol in very strictly controlled places in our downtown or in other areas. This is not making a decision on whether or not social districts will happen. It's just putting it to the voters in Keene whether or not they want to enable it.
Right, and one of the requirements will be a public hearing on both that and the keynote question, and that's a great opportunity for the public to get their questions answered and to understand what does it mean to have a social district, what might it look like, and so I know those hearings are coming up.
They're on November 6th, so they're basically at 7 o'clock. One will start at 7, one will follow when the first one finishes, so we have them technically at 7 and 7:05 p.m. on November 6th here in Council Chambers at City Hall. We also talked last night about the holiday sponsorship program. So first of all, thank you, Natalie, for being there. Natalie works really, really hard behind the scenes with her team to manage our human services operations. She went out of her way to come to the council meeting last night and come to FOP previously to review a number of items, one of which was how the holiday sponsorship program works and to make sure to get permission from the council to accept those donations. And I want to say that we have seen the community come together to provide in a very generous way for families and individuals in need around the holidays. The amount of gift giving that happens is truly remarkable. It blows me away every year, over and over again. And I think it's wonderful both for the families and individuals who receive this outpouring of support with gifts, and also it feels really good for the giver. And we see Keene businesses really support this program. So thank you, City Council, for allowing this to happen. Thank you for Natalie for managing it. It's a big lift. You should see the halls of City Hall when all these gifts start pouring in for the community.
Lots and lots of gifts.
What also impresses me is not only does the community step up, but our employees step up. I mean, we on the third floor, we adopt a family, and then finance adopts a family, and all these different departments are giving generously and adopting a family and buying their presents and wrapping them and bringing them downstairs. So there's just really a great project that started a long time ago, and people just are so generous.
If there are any businesses out there that would like to sponsor a family, please contact Human Services Department and they'll get you the information. We just are excited to do this again. Although I have to say, it's a little shocking to know that the holidays are almost upon us. I don't know if I'm ready for that, but this is the first wake-up call that here it is.
I know. I can't believe it's only a couple months away from 2026.
Then the second thing that Natalie brought to the FOP committee that came to council last night was a review of how the outside agency funding works. And this is where outside agencies can get funding in the city's operating budget to support their operations for helping the community in various ways. So Natalie did a good job of really outlining the process. It's not a quick and easy process. They really need to provide a lot of information about what the service is, what other funding sources they have, how many people they're helping in Keene, and a whole host of other pages of information in their application to get this funding. So this came up last year in the budget process. The counselors wanted to know how the process worked and what was involved, and they did accept that informationally last night.
Yeah, the outside agency process is pretty extensive, and I think that what's important about that is we really focus on reviewing what expenses the city would potentially have to pay if this nonprofit wasn't providing that service. And we focus on Keene residents, how many Keene residents are being served. And the committee that looks at these applications really tries to hone in on that for justification for contributions in the budget. So I'm glad Natalie was able to go over that. I know last year, actually every year, the outside agency gets a lot of attention during the budget review process. And there was questions at last year's budget adoption as to whether or not that should change. It doesn't sound like we have any concrete changes in the process right now.
We had a number of other actions at the council meeting last night. I just want to say thank you to the fire department. While we have this opportunity, they delivered a baby a few days ago.
Isn't that amazing?
Right? I can't imagine how horrified I would be if I was giving labor in my car and not able to make it to the hospital. And this young family ended up not being able to make it to the hospital, and they stopped at the fire department. And I made a point of thanking the chief and Deputy Seymour because what the fire department team did was truly amazing. And I'm really grateful that they were there, and I know it was not much time to react to a very serious situation, but it turned out great, and everybody is okay. And so I just want to give kudos and a big thank you to the fire team. So other than that, good news that we reported last night was the comprehensive master plan has been officially approved. So we are moving forward with what was an 18-month-long project. Mary Brunner, Paul Andrews, and other people, both in community development as well as throughout the city staff, as well as the community, really came together to say this is what we want to see for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And that will be the guiding light for the council goals, for our capital improvement program, for our budget. We are really, really glad to have that done and super grateful to the team that made it possible.
That is great news. I'm glad to hear that because I do have some work that we need to really get started on in terms of council goals, but also capital planning. And we do use that document. You go back to that for every project that we do, for every strategy that we come up with. It really is our guiding document. So it's great to have that done. It had gotten delayed when we had Rhett retire from the city. Rhett Lamb, who was our community development director, we had to sort of restart again. And so I'm excited to have it finalized so that we can move some of these other initiatives forward.
Yeah, that really is exciting. And I don't want to go too much into the technical details of the ordinances regarding Grove Street, but what really matters here is for people to understand that we had a city property at the corner of Grove Street and Water Street, and that property has been sold to Habitat for Humanity. There was an easement that the city had on the edge of that property that is no longer needed on the Grove Street side that will provide a little bit more room for Habitat for Humanity as they're meeting those setback requirements, so they can potentially get 2 residential units in that lot. And so there were a number of actions that were necessary on behalf of the council to make that possible, and those did pass last night. There was a little confusion about whether or not that's going to fix the lane alignment between Community Way and Grove Street. These actions that the council took do not solve that problem right away, but there is still the opportunity to do that. The city did not give up anything that would allow us in the future to realign Grove Street if needed, but that did not happen last night. Other than that, is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Elizabeth?
I don't think so. We have coming up, this next round will be PLD, and I believe the FOP meeting, finance meeting, is canceled because we have the fire inspection dinner that Thursday evening at the fire department. That is always so much fun. They put on a great meal for everyone. It's a great time for the chief to talk about the accomplishments from the fire department over the past year.
I think also last night the mayor announced Halloween trick-or-treating times. That doesn't always happen on the 31st, depending on where that falls in the week, but this year that will happen on October 31st, and it will be from 5:30 to 7:30, so that's something to look forward to as well. There are a number of festivals this month. So if you go to explorekeene.org, Paragon Digital actually maintains that site, and they have a whole page dedicated to events and festivals, and you'll find a lot going on in downtown this month. I think it's really important that we not end this podcast without mentioning that there's a municipal election this fall. So people don't always notice the municipal elections as much as when there is a state or federal election, but this election is important. There is going to be a primary, and then there will be a general election. The clerk's office and all of the volunteers and all of their team that pull off these elections, it can take many, many people, and they're putting in a lot of work to make this election happen. So we encourage people to come out and vote.
Yeah, come out and vote. There are actually quite a few races for different positions, and so I'm hoping we get a great turnout and people get an opportunity to vote for their candidate.
This will also be the opportunity to vote on Keno and social districts as to those questions will be on the ballot. I also wanted to make sure people understand that the state did change the voter registration requirements, and so it's so disappointing to the clerk's team when somebody comes and they provide what they think is ID to register to vote, but it's not meeting the state requirements and they have to turn them away and hopefully they come back. Just make sure to check out the city website. We have a link to the election page right on the landing page for keenanh.gov. Make sure to take a look at what you need to bring for ID when you are coming to the polls.
Well, great. Is there anything else that either of you would like to talk about today? We've covered a lot.
I think I'm good.
Well, as always, I will encourage you to go to keenanh.gov/jobs. As Rebecca mentioned, we've got a lot of awesome community events coming up, so check those out as well. October's looking like it's going to be just gorgeous. If there is nothing else, I think we'll wrap up for today, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening to City of Keene in Focus. We'll see you next time.